welcome to Connecting the Dots, the channel where we follow the breadcrumbs and try to predict where disruptions will take us. I recently caught a piece of news where an investor in an EV company criticized the firm for overly investing in growth. He wanted them to initiate stock buybacks. He demanded that they stop lowering prices and start raising them instead. He said they should add more models and diversify their lineup. He knew everything that they should do, but I knew that he knew nothing. Because as a car guy, I know this story. It's an epic yet misunderstood saga of industrial rivalry. I call it Henry's Gambit. Welcome to the story of Dodge versus Ford. A quick shout out to my latest patrons, Martin V, Sean K, and Mike A. Thank you for choosing to support the channel. Patrons make this channel possible. So to all my patrons, you guys rock. Now buckle up and get ready because we are about to delve into a story of great disruption, and disruptions are never boring. Chapter 1, The Dawn of a Partnership. At the turn of the 20th century, the industrial landscape of America was a canvas of innovation and ambition. The Wright brothers took flight. Construction started to join two oceans with the Panama Canal. Homes across the nation began to glow with the light of electrification, and radio technology promised to connect people near and far into moments of shared experience. Amidst all this, the automobile industry arrived, bringing with it the promise of a transportation revolution. Cars were new and fresh and exciting. They smelled of the future, yet manually made. They were still expensive and wildly regarded rich men's toys. Enter Henry Ford. His vision was audacious yet simple, to manufacture an automobile that was reliable, efficient, and most importantly, accessible to the average American. This dream, however, was constrained not by imagination, but by the practicalities of capital and production. Henry Ford's entry into the automotive industry was a journey of persistence and innovation and initial setbacks which shaped his way forward. In 1899, the 36-year-old Henry Ford founded his first venture, the Detroit Automobile Company. And in 1901, barely 2 years after its founding, the company faltered due to high production costs, which rendered its cars unaffordable. With this lesson on affordability in mind, Ford immediately tried again with the Henry Ford Company. Due to strategic disagreements with investors, this arrangement was even shorter-lived and folded after a year. While Ford prioritized innovation and building a lightweight, affordable car, the other investors were more concerned with making a heavier, more luxurious vehicle. Ford left after a year, and investors got what they wanted, as the Henry Ford Company was renamed after Detroit's founder, Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac, and finally shifted to luxury. With a lesson on investor alignment joining the one on affordability, Ford started seeking like-minded backers to invest in a new company to bear his name, the company we still know as Ford. Enter Horace and John Dodge, better known as the Dodge brothers. The brothers started out producing bicycle parts and later expanded to building complete bicycles. While working on these, Horace Dodge invented a ball bearing for bicycles, which provided lower friction without letting dirt enter the bearing. The brothers patented the bearing and licensed production to several bicycle manufacturers across the country, which opened for them constant streams of income. If you wondered why Horace and John are always referred to together, that's because they were practically inseparable. While born 4 years apart, they acted as if they were twins. They dressed the same, they went to the same events, they hung out together in bars, and even insisted that letters should be addressed to both, refusing to open mail sent to just one of the brothers. And although Horace invented the bearing, they applied for the patent, with both brothers listed as inventors. With increased funding, the brothers expanded their business to start producing automobile parts, which were soon recognized for their high quality. This caught the attention of a few automakers, among them Ransom E. Olds, which in 1902 started ordering Dodge Brothers parts for his curved dash Oldsmobile, the first mass-produced automobile built on an assembly line using interchangeable parts. Olds found an ideal match in the Dodge brothers, as the consistency of their production was crucial for making parts interchangeable. As a side note, I'd like to address the common mix-up between the curved dash Oldsmobile and Ford's Model T in terms of assembly line innovations. The curved dash Oldsmobile was the first car to have workers assembling parts at fixed stations, making it the first mass-produced automobile to be built on an assembly line. While this introduced significant savings over traditional builds, partially assembled cars in Oldsmobile's factory had to be manually moved from station to station. Henry Ford took this concept further with the Model T by introducing a moving assembly line. This method, where the car chassis was transported between workers on a conveyor belt, forced spending a consistently short time in each station and drastically cut down assembly time and costs. So while Olds' assembly line pioneered mass production of automobiles, Ford's moving assembly line revolutionized it, making the Model T synonymous with the democratization of automobile ownership. Back to our story. With a thriving business supplying Oldsmobile and other companies with parts, the Dodges possessed both the capital and the manufacturing prowess that Ford sought to leverage for his next venture. His need for funding and support converged with their resources and expertise. With both sides highly technical, Ford felt a relief getting his funding from like-minded people instead of bankers, while the brothers identified the potential in Ford's revolutionary ideas and unyielding determination. It was an opportunity they did not want to miss. The parties struck a straightforward yet significant deal. In exchange for $10,000 from the Dodge brothers, including $3,000 in cash and $7,000 in parts and materials, Ford would give the brothers a 10% stake in the new Ford Motor Company. In addition, if the company fails to make a profit, the brothers were entitled to seize all its assets, including factories, parts, cars, the lot. If the deal seems lopsided in favor of the brothers, that's because it was. $10,000 in 1903 are like $350,000 in today's money, which is peanuts for 10% of Ford's upcoming startup, even at its pre-incorporation stage. Yet Ford took the deal. He could not find other funding at the time, and pragmatically understanding the challenges ahead, he realized that while his innovative vision and designs were crucial, the practical aspects of building a car, from getting funding and securing high-quality parts to assembling them efficiently, were equally important. The Dodge brothers' reputation for excellence in manufacturing and their willingness to invest in Ford's vision made them ideal partners. Moreover, Ford was keenly aware of the need for alignment with his investors, a lesson learned from his previous ventures. The Dodge brothers' technical background and entrepreneurial spirit were in harmony with Ford's ambitions, promising a partnership based on mutual respect and shared goals. This agreement marked the birth of a partnership that would alter the course of automotive history. Funding secured, the Ford Motor Company was born. In my September 2023 patron-exclusive video, I tried to predict which device will succeed smartphones for the years before Neuralink. After demonstrating my ideas using ChatGPT, I concluded that smartphones as we know them will be replaced by other smartphones, only different. Smartphones are great, but their interface is lagging. Typing and speech input are very slow, and solving the interface gap would completely transform the phone. I suggested LLM-based smartphones, which, from a tiny bit of input, including typos, would understand what you want and take it from there. And while these phones aren't here yet, there's the next best thing. Type AI, the sponsor of this video, is a keyboard extension app based on the ChatGPT API that works seamlessly on any platform or app on your phone and enables some really cool things. It can fix spelling and grammar or translate your text, and it can even generate text for you. Imagine falling ill and having to ask a professor to reschedule a test. Open the Mail app and briefly write what you need, click the Type AI button and Ask AI, and Type AI will create the email for you. Clicking Apply will fill the email with the updated text instead of your stub. Or imagine missing a friend's birthday. Just enter WhatsApp, write a stub message, and ask Type AI's tone changer to change the tone of the message, in this case to sad, then click Apply, and the message is ready to send. Type AI is a great time saver. Click the link in the description for a free trial of Type AI Premium version and experience the future now. Chapter 2. Diverging Visions. Recognizing Ford's ability to deliver on his grand dreams, the Dodge brothers stopped taking orders from other manufacturers and started producing parts solely for Ford. It started as a perfect match, really. Ford received external production capacity for a steady supply of high-quality parts, while for Dodge, it meant winning on the bottom side as Ford's primary parts supplier and on the top side as its second-largest shareholder. It started as a perfect match, but of course, it was too good to last. Owning 10% of Ford's company and building on Ford's profits and dividends, the brothers pushed Ford to make improvements in the Model T and update it so it could sell at higher prices. Ford thought otherwise. Linear reductions in price can expand the market exponentially, and Ford wanted to reduce the price of the car to a point where it became a viable option for the common man, which would make sales explode. It was the same story as with the old Henry Ford Company, aka Cadillac, all over again, only this time Ford was the controlling partner, so he ignored their calls and continued to pursue the price-lowering route. This difference in opinions persisted, but I'll cut to the chase. In 2010, the Dodge brothers started construction for a large factory, the Dodge main plant, which signaled their intentions to expand their manufacturing capabilities beyond parts supply and into producing cars. Many sources interpret this as primarily a clash of egos, but I believe there's more to the story, and while ego certainly played a role, the core issue is markedly different. To be straightforward, those who emphasize the ego narrative, from period newspapers to modern YouTube channels, don't have the faintest idea about the dynamics of disruption. Thus, without realizing the logical explanation, and possibly also to dramatize the events, they often reduce the conflict to simple emotional motives like stubbornness and pride. For example, consider this quote from Donut Media's video about the feud.
For years, the Dodge brothers had been giving Ford suggestions on how to improve the Model T, but Henry's pride and stubborn nature got in the way of listening. He just thought they were trying to screw him for more money. It started to become clear that Ford was a little paranoid. They also soon realized that Ford was prejudiced against redheads. Yeah, the ginger-haired Dodge brothers were 10% partners with a man who thought they were evil because of their hair color. Tired of being ignored by Henry, Dodge completed construction on a massive new facility in 1910.
It's the same type of guys that think Ford stubbornly insisted to sell any color you like as long as it's black, without realizing that production was so optimized that there was no time left for paint to dry. Since Japan black had the fastest drying time, it enabled making more cars at the same time. So idiots from the media point fingers and say, Crazy Henry refuses to offer colors which could unlock more demand, without realizing that they are the stupid ones, as making more colors would end up in making fewer cars. Come on guys, you can do better than that. First, it's not that Ford refused the Dodge brothers' suggestions because they came from them. Ford refused any change that would raise the cost of making the car, and the suggestions that the brothers gave to make the car faster and more luxurious did exactly that. Second, I'm sure that the Dodge brothers hated having no say in the company, and that even regardless of that, after so many years in the industry, they felt ripe to establish a legacy of their own and make cars bearing their own name. But the real reason they built Dodge Main wasn't pride, it was preemptive action against being disrupted. The Dodge brothers were Ford's primary parts producers, but they were being shoved out. When just starting out, Dodge supplied Ford with an entire chassis complete with engine and transmission, and the rest of the car would be finished at Ford's plant. Ford was extremely non-vertically integrated and extremely reliant on an almost monopolistic single supplier, but as a small company just starting an uphill climb, teaming up with a top supplier was extremely convenient. As Ford grew, however, they started making more and more of the car's parts themselves and became more vertically integrated. This significantly accelerated when Ford built the Highland Park factory, in which Model T's production line was optimized. Henry Ford's vision for the Highland Park plant, which opened in 1910, was to have a facility capable of manufacturing everything from bodies to engines and every part of the Model T chassis. By controlling the entire production process, Ford was able to scale up production and meet the high demand for the Model T. As shown in my Highland video, link in description, Henry Ford's vertical integration dream reached stratospheric heights in the next factory that Ford built after Highland Park, their River Rouge plant, currently home of the Ford F-150 Lightning production. River Rouge took vertical integration even further by incorporating all aspects of the manufacturing process, including the processing of raw materials, into one complex. A typical day in this plant would see Ford trains riding Ford's railroad bringing iron ore from Ford mines. The ore would be transferred to blast furnaces and transformed into steel with heat supplied by coal from Ford mines in Kentucky. It would then continue through the foundry molds and stamping mills, and 28 hours after arrival as ore, a finished automobile would emerge on the other side. At the height of its success, Ford's holdings stretched from the iron mines of northern Michigan to the jungles of Brazil, and it operated in 33 countries around the globe. Most remarkably, not 1 cent had been borrowed to pay for any of it. It was all built out of profits from the Model T. Back to the Highland Park factory. We all cheer its extreme vertical integration, but I'm sure that the Dodge brothers did not. After all, if Ford builds all its parts themselves, this leaves little room for suppliers. Realizing that Highland Park's vertical integration would significantly disrupt their parts supply business, the Dodge brothers had to seek other alternatives. So it's not a coincidence that construction started on Dodge Main's plant on the same year that Ford's Highland Park plant started production. Timeline. I want to jump to the lawsuit and Ford's Gambit, so let's briefly touch a few major events leading there. In 1903, Ford and the Dodge brothers struck a deal, and the Ford Motor Company was incorporated. Between 1903 and 1908, the Dodge brothers supplied parts exclusively to Ford. On January 1, 1910, Ford's Highland Park factory started operating. Ford started producing many more of the parts themselves, and things between Ford and the brothers started going downhill. Later that year, construction started on the Dodge Main plant. In 1913, Ford introduced the moving assembly line for Model T and started significantly lowering its cost and price. And 1914 was a crucial year in which Dodge stopped producing parts for Ford and started producing their own cars. Ford announced the $5 wage, doubling wages in an attempt to reduce high employee turnover. And to top this all, Ford decided to stop all dividends and invest all profits in expanding production and lowering Model T's price. In 1916, the brothers had had enough and took this soap opera to court. Chapter 3, Order in the Court. In 1916, the simmering tension between Henry Ford and the Dodge brothers reached a critical point, leading to a lawsuit that changed the course of American corporate governance to this day. At the heart of the conflict was Ford's philosophy of reinvesting profits into the company to expand production and reduce the Model T's price, a strategy that clashed with the Dodge brothers' desire for dividends from their shares in Ford Motor Company. The Dodge brothers contended that Henry Ford's refusal to pay dividends, coupled with his plan to reinvest profits for expansion, was a mismanagement of shareholder assets that deprived shareholders, including themselves, of rightful profits. Ford, on the other hand, defended his strategy as a visionary investment in the company's future and societal progress, aiming to make transportation affordable for the average American. The legal battle culminated in 1919 with the Michigan Supreme Court ruling in favor of the Dodge brothers. The court mandated that companies must operate in a manner that prioritizes shareholder interests, including the distribution of profits as dividends. This decision underscored the legal principle that corporations existed primarily to benefit their shareholders, a doctrine that would shape American corporate governance for decades to come. The court ruling dictated a more equitable dividend distribution, ordering an estimated $19 million to be paid out retroactively. Ironically, a significant portion of this payout was allocated to Henry Ford and his family, the company's majority shareholders. Chapter 4, Ford's Gambit. Now it was Ford's turn to have enough. In the wake of the 1919 court ruling, which mandated Ford Motor Company to issue significant dividends, Henry Ford found himself at a crossroads. The decision not only challenged his control over the company's finances, but also threatened his visionary plans for its future. Rather than conceding defeat, Ford devised a strategic countermove that would redefine the power dynamics within the company. Ford's response to the court's decision was both bold and unprecedented. In a move that stunned the automotive industry and the business world alike, he resigned from his position as Ford's president, the era's equivalent of today's CEO, and nominated his 26-year-old son Edsel as president instead. In addition, Ford publicly contemplated replicating his previous move from the Henry Ford Company by leaving the Ford Motor Company altogether and starting a new competing company. Had Ford been publicly traded, its price would have nosedived, but being privately held, the effect is harder to determine. What we do know, however, is that with an inexperienced young CEO at the helm and the genius founder possibly forming a competitor, trust in the stock tanked. Ford leveraged this to his favor and began buyout negotiations with the Dodge brothers and other minority shareholders. The negotiations culminated in 1920 when Ford successfully purchased the outstanding shares for $105 million. While it is difficult to assess the actual value of these shares prior to Henry's Gambit, it was considered an extremely good deal at the time. Henry Ford's Gambit worked, giving him and his son Edsel 100% ownership of the company. At long last, Ford could be confident that future decisions could align with his vision, without external interference. Chapter 5, Analysis by Disruptions. This is a classic case of losing the legal battle, but through cunning and determination, winning the entire war. Not in the media, however. People don't grasp disruption, and since Ford lost in court, he was vilified. For example, let's watch a short clip from SAX's video on the topic.
The once strong friendship between Ford and the Dodges had developed into a bitter competition for dominance in the automotive industry. Ford, determined to prove that his Model T was superior, engaged in tactics to undercut the Dodge's efforts. One of the most notable tactics Ford employed was engaging in a price war with the Dodge brothers. Ford drastically reduced the price of the Model T, making it more affordable and undercutting the price of the Dodge vehicles. Ford's intention was to lure potential customers away from the Dodge's cars, offering them a more budget-friendly alternative. Ford also implemented changes within his own company to gain a competitive edge. He increased the wages of his workers to an unprecedented level of $5 a day, which not only helped with workforce retention, but also generated positive publicity for the company.
Fittingly, look at the way Henry Ford is shown on the video thumbnail. I'm not blaming SAX for this. It's not their fault. Everywhere you go, you'll see coverage of crazy, evil Henry Ford willing to shoot himself in the foot in order to ruin the Dodge brothers. However, things were very different. One argument made against Ford was that he just wanted to kick the Dodge brothers out of his company. It's not that simple, as early in the dispute they offered to sell him their shares, but Ford declined. The price they were asking wasn't much higher than what he eventually paid, but considering that the company experienced wild, exponential growth during the period, it is safe to assume that in terms of percentage of company value, the price the brothers asked was somewhat inflated, while after the Gambit, Ford bought them dirt cheap. The way I see it, if Ford had a time machine with which to bring evidence from the future on how his plans worked out, he would have won the case. One claim Ford made was that he wanted to invest in employee welfare and make transportation affordable for all. This echoes modern concepts similar to ESG, but since the court didn't uphold this and ruled that companies should only focus on shareholder value, this is what I'll show too. Ford should have won the case because tremendous shareholder value is exactly what he was bringing. Let's dismantle SAX's claims one by one and show how Ford's actions weren't just logical, they actually brought lots of value. First,
Ford, determined to prove that his Model T was superior, engaged in tactics to undercut the Dodge's efforts.
the truth is that Ford did not see Model T as superior, only as cheaper. Had he wanted to make superior cars, he would have accepted the Dodge brothers' previous suggestion of adding an electric starter, but that would have added to the car's price. In 1914, when Dodge started producing their first car, Model T cost $490. Selling for $785, the Dodge cost an extra 60%. In modern terms, Ford let Dodge and the others try to make a Mercedes, while he was busy making Corollas and selling more of them than any other car in the world. Second,
one of the most notable tactics Ford employed was engaging in a price war with the Dodge brothers. Ford drastically reduced the price of the Model T, making it more affordable and undercutting the price of the Dodge vehicles.
lowering prices was key to Ford's strategy of achieving higher sales. It's true that the car's price dropped from $490 to $360 in the 2 years from 1914 to 1916, but that 27% drop is in the same range as the previous 29% drop from 1912 to 1914 and 24% drop from 1910 to 1912, a time when Ford and the Dodges were still partners. Third,
Ford also implemented changes within his own company to gain a competitive edge. He increased the wages of his workers to an unprecedented level of $5 a day, which not only helped with workforce retention, but also generated positive publicity for the company.
Ford's raising wages had nothing to do with the Dodge brothers. He did not compete with them for labor. As with high unemployment in Detroit, he could get as many workers as he needed. However, work was very demanding, and Ford had a problem with employee turnover. For example, in 1913 alone, Ford employed about 13,000 workers at the factory, yet the same year over 50,000 workers left their jobs at the Ford factory. On average, employees only worked around 3 months before quitting. Many workers left without giving notice, which left their station unmanned. Then new guys were hired and had to be shown the ropes. For a production line built around optimized speed, this was a real problem, and doubling the wages completely stopped the turnover problem and had employees giving more from themselves, such as floor sweepers digging out dropped nuts instead of throwing them away. The bottom line, automobiles were disrupting the horse and carriage industry, and it was a rapidly growing market. Ford understood disruption and knew that it's far easier to increase sales in a growing market than in a saturated one. Being the first to use a moving assembly line gave him a head start, but others were moving to it as well, And if he didn't invest every possible cent in growth, others that did would outpace him, eat away his head start, and overtake him. Once growth stops, it's the large ones that survive, and Ford's mad growth during the period is exactly why they are still around today. While others like Studebaker, Packard, Hudson, and Auburn are footnotes in automotive history. Dividends are great for a market with moats, but in times of disruption, you either run as fast as you can or you get outrun by others. The proof is in the pudding. Henry's strategy of investing in growth, reducing costs, and lowering prices propelled Model T sales from 10,000 units in 1909 to 740,000 by 1916, and over 2 million cars by 1923. And Ford's net income grew from $4 million in 1910 to $40 million in 1915. Had Ford had a time machine, he could have won the case. As it is, he only won the war. Aftermath. In 1920, during a visit to the New York Auto Show, the Dodge brothers contracted the Spanish flu and tragically passed away within the same year. Following their passing, the Dodge family chose not to hold on to their shares in Ford, leading to Henry Ford's buyout of these shares later that year. This transition marked a significant shift, concluding the Dodge family's financial ties to Ford and heralding new directions for both companies. Yet, the legacy of this epic battle lives to this day in the hearts of fans and owners, often the great-great-grandchildren of those whose first car was a Dodge or a Model T. The tale of Ford and Dodge is not just a story of rivalry, but a testament to the indomitable spirit of innovation, resilience, and competition that made America, for all its problems, the greatest country in the world. It's a reminder that the fiercest competitions birth the most incredible advancements, shaping the future and inspiring us to keep pushing the boundaries. Moreover, neither Ford nor the Dodge brothers were MBAs or bean counters. They were exceptional engineers and machinists who dared to dream big and build bigger. They are people who built great companies and changed the world, and whether you're Ford or Mopar, Chevy, BMW, or Tesla, I think we can all agree they made it a better place. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe. Also, please consider supporting me on patreon.com/connectingodots for as little as $1 a month. Besides helping me make more content, you will get early, ad-free access to all my videos, as well as monthly patron-exclusive content. Don't forget to click the link in the description to visit Type AI and get your free trial. Come follow me on X, where I am connecting Odots. Until next time, I am connecting the dots, and you are amazing.
When you run out of luck, need to get unstuck, so go off. When you're up against the wall and you cannot fall, so go off, go off.